Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session on managing activity in Microsoft Teams. I'm Adam DiProspero, and I am from Talent Acquisition and Development, and I'll be joined by my co-host today, Cheryl Dickey, who is also from Talent Acquisition and Development. We are both technical learning specialists within the department, and we are very fortunate to be joined by Bruce Fisher, who will be helping out with some of the technical questions. He is from UIT and he is the Systems Management Services Manager. So we have a lot to cover. Let's get into it. So Teams is this great app. A lot of the campus has been embracing it since the whole shift to remote from home. But what people are finding kind of different things with it. So for some of us, it can be daunting to handle all of the different messages and alerts that we're getting, and it's kind of hard to manage all of that. But on the flip side, there are also some users who aren't getting any sort of alerts. So there's activity going on in Teams. Their colleagues are creating content and sharing different resources, and they're just not aware of any of this going on. And then they have to, then someone brings their attention to it, so they log into the Teams on the website, and then they see, oh, there's all this stuff, and I didn't know about any of this. So the course really aims to explore the features that can help us to find a balance between these two extremes. So I'm going to share my screen with you right now. This is our agenda, and this is what we're planning to cover. So we're going to start with a discussion around Teams desktop app versus web app. If you're currently using the web app, we'll look at some of the reasons that might entice you to come over and start using the desktop app. We're going to look at the different types of messages in Teams and which ones you might want to consider using in what situations and how they actually work and what are the implications of those messages. Then once we understand the basis of messages, the difference between chat messages and posts and conversations, we'll go on to how can we actually be notified about these messages. So understanding the whole notification system. When we have a nice basis in the notification system, we'll introduce this concept of @mentions, which provides a really nice way to kind of ping people, all members of a channel, all members of a team. So we'll see some of the details around there. And then we're going to cover the availability and status. So what do you want to do if you just want to temporarily silence all the messages coming in? How can you do that? What do you want to do if you want to let people know that you're available to chat? And then we'll go on to a bit of a discussion, a little bit of an insight into a question that comes up often around when should I be using Teams chat versus what's more suitable for an email. And then we'll wrap up the session with looking at the different ways we can format and create our messages, and also how once our messages are out there in the world and other people have messaged us, and maybe it's a few weeks later, how do we actually find those messages? Okay, so this is the agenda. I'll just flip back to this slide over here. If at any point you have questions, what we'll do is I'll take breaks if you've attended any of our other sessions. When I get to a logical point and when I'm explaining, I'll take a break, and I encourage everyone to use the raise hand feature to let me know you have a question, and then I can answer that. Bruce and Cheryl will be helping out as well. And then, of course, we have the chat available if you wanted to shoot off anything in the chat. If you are using the chat, make sure to message everyone. Don't message me directly or Bruce or Cheryl directly. It just makes it easier if everyone sees the question. People can all benefit from that. Okay. Okay, so the assumptions of the course. We're not starting from the very beginning here. We're not going to be describing what is Teams exactly and all these details. So we're assuming that you have a basic familiarity with the O365 platform. We also make the assumption that you, the viewers, are currently using Teams in some capacity, whether that means you're using it for chat, you've replaced your Skype client with Teams, or you're actually, full-fledged into the Teams sites and you have your department and maybe a few other Teams sites that you're using right now. If this isn't the case, if you feel like, oh, I don't even know what you're talking about with Office 365, and you don't have that basis, that's okay. Still sit back, watch the show, enjoy. But then afterwards, you can follow up with our resources from our last course, which contains a nice overview on Teams itself, Office 365, and then links out to some of our partner videos and written content as well. Okay, so the first big thing here, Teams desktop app versus the web app. And for this, I'll bring over my, my browser here. Okay, so if we were to log into portal.office.com or uoffice.yorku.ca, you get taken to the Teams desktop, okay? And this works fine and well if you're just kind of poking around. And there are like some limited ways that you could do desktop notifications. So it's okay, but what we recommend is if this is the primary way you're accessing Teams, click on the bottom left button over here, download desktop app, and get that installed. Once you have it installed, you get access to all these great features such as a reliable notification system that appears on your computer. You can integrate it with the instant messaging. So if you're using Skype, it will replace Skype. And you will also get integration with Outlook. So let's see what we're talking about here. So we'll assume I click download there. And then from there, it installs. If you need help installing, what I would say is try it out. Try to get it installed. But if you run into any problems, shoot us off a message at lvtech@yorku.ca and we can definitely help you out there. But once it's installed, it looks like this. And you can see it looks like very similar to what we were just looking at in the web client. But if you want to reap some of the advantages I was talking about there, what you need to do is click on your profile icon in the top right, go down to settings, and then from here you can click on notifications. Okay, so when you click on, or sorry, actually we're just going to remain on general for now because this is where we could get to a lot of our options. So you could see these are the 3 ones we recommend. This is the option register as the chat app if you wanted to override what you're doing with Skype. Remember, Skype's going away at some point, so we do encourage everyone to be using Teams for chat. And then these 2 will just make sure that your Teams is always running. So if someone messages you, you're going to get those messages because it boots up when your computer starts up. And if you close your icon from your taskbar, you'll still see that there. Okay, so those are the big settings that we want to work with. Okay, so from there, let's if we don't have any questions, we're going to move on to the different message types we have in Teams. Okay, so we have 2 primary message types in Teams. We have chat messages. So this is like what you're dealing with Skype, more of a one-on-one or a smaller group of individuals communicating with each other. And then we have something called channel posts. So this is when you're actually in a team and you have your team that's made up of channels and you're starting conversations in there. So let's look at that. We'll look at both of these. So if I click on chat, you can see these are my chat messages. So everything in this chat area, I can click on this project I have over here, and then it shows me all of the chat messages, okay? And I can go to other individuals here. Like if I go to Robin, for example, and I can see, and you can see that we get some notifications, some stuff pops up there. So that's a chat message. On the flip side, the channel post, if we go into a Teams site, so now I'm leaving the chat, I'm going into Teams, and I'm going to go into a specific team. Each of these are channels for that team. So I can click on one of these. And now this general channel, these are all the conversations. These are the posts, okay, that are going on in here. And you can see for each post, you can reply back to, that. I can go like that and post an additional message in that conversation, okay? So those are the 2 differences. We have chats, which like I said, are one-on-one or, you set it up with specific people versus channel posts. Now, for each of these channel messages and channel posts, ideally we want a few things to happen, right? First and foremost, we want when we send a message out there, regardless of what type it is, we want to alert others about it. Okay, we want them to be able to see that we've posted something. We don't want them to have to track it down and see, oh, did someone post a new message? Let me go look. You want them to be alerted when that happens. On the other side of it, though, you might be getting bombarded with messages, and it's too much, and it's for content that maybe right now is not related to you. So in that case, we want to kind of quiet down the messages. And I think the third thing that we want to be able to do is to be able to find messages when needed. So maybe, you know, someone sent me a link to an important project we're working on, and they sent it at the time. I got my notification, I was able to access it. Now it's weeks later and I want to find that link. I'm a part of multiple teams. I have so many different chats going on. I can't remember where exactly she sent this to me. So we need a way to be able to kind of search through and find it, okay? So what I'm hoping is that by the end of this session, this 1 hour session we have here, that I will have shown you the tools available to actually accomplish changing your settings, so you can get a good balance between the first two here, and that you'll be aware of the approaches to take to actually find your content. Okay, so that's my goal for today. Okay, @mentions. This is a really big feature of Teams. This is kind of a really innovative idea that you can see in other chat apps as well, other programs. So @mentions, we have a way, if we do our @ symbol, we have a way to individually ping someone. So for example, if I'm on this general page and there's a conversation going on here, and I want to loop someone in this team into this, right? And I'm thinking, you know what? We're having a conversation. I'm pretty sure they're not aware that this is going on. So I just want to explicitly kind of shout them out, right? So I could do an @ symbol, and I could say that's person name. So maybe it's Condor over here. So I could say @Condor student. Okay, and then I'll put my message. Did you see this? Okay, so by doing the @mention, I'm actually calling them out. And depending on how their settings are enabled, they're either going to receive a pop-up about this or an email or so on, okay? So that's the first idea with @mention. So we have @mentions to a specific person. Another thing we could do is maybe it's not just one person, it's a whole group of people. And we know that they're all a part of this channel here. So I can actually @mention the channel name. So I could either just say @channel, and it brings up my general channel there. Or I could say the channel name, so general. Okay. The third way you could @mention is if you want to grab the whole team. So not necessarily people that are following one of these channels, but the whole team. So I could do @team, or in most cases I have to say the team name, so HR, like that. So I could do @team, and it comes up with the name. Sometimes you just have to backspace there, clear it out, and try it again. So you can see that I have different levels of this @mention over there. Okay, now how these @mentions actually work is highly dependent on each person's notifications, the personal notifications that they've set up, okay? So let's look at that. I will go over to my Teams account here, and in order to start, like a good starting point for dealing with your notifications is if you click on your profile, settings, okay, and then under notifications. This contains all of your notifications something. So what happens if someone @mentions me? What happens if someone @mentions the channel or the team? And I can click on this and see each of those different settings. So banner and email, banner, or show it only in feed. What the heck do these mean? So let's go through this. That banner, okay, let's look at that. So if I'm just in my general area here, and I'm gonna go somewhere else, and I'll @mention my my test account here. So give me a second while I bring up one of these projects that I have. And what I'll do is, so I'm off screen right now, but I'm gonna @mention this user here. Okay, and then when I do that, what should happen is we see this pop up right here. Robin teacher mentioned you. So this is the banner, okay? Email, if we go back to that, I'll bring up this menu over here that shows our notifications. So we have our banner and email. But then there's also just only show in feed. So what does that mean? I'll go back to my settings. So if you want, you could disable that banner. Maybe they're popping up so much and it's just overwhelming. You can disable the banner, but still have it show in the feed. So notice up here, I have a 1 indicator, That lets me know that there's some activity related to me. When I click it, I can see it in the feed. So that's a different way to go about it. Okay, I'll go back in there. So again, profile, settings, notifications. Okay, and so maybe for personal, I'm gonna leave it at mentions, banner rather. Anytime someone does a personal mention, I do want to see that right away. But maybe channel mentions, I don't need to see that pop up right away. I'll have a designated time that I look at it. So I could do it only in feed, or I could even turn it off completely if I want. Okay, so that's the first part, the mentions. Then we have messages, and this is what we were talking about earlier, right? So you have chat messages, so you could choose that same kind of breakdown. Then you have conversations. So conversations, this is the old language used by Microsoft. It's now called posts, our channel posts. So conversations posts, you'll hear those used interchangeably there, okay? So the thing I will stress is, provided, even if you've set this to only show in feed or anything else, you will always get a notification icon in your taskbar here. So if I go here and I say never mind, what we'll see is well, okay, this is another good point. Since I already had the window open, I didn't actually receive any sort of notification. So I'll go back to this area and let me just do this. I'm going to delete that. I'll try that again. Oh, I did it again. Sorry. So now that we're off the screen, okay, what you'll see is I've sent a message at Starling. Okay, and we get a notification icon down here as well. So these are the different things we're going to see: a banner, this notification that will happen even if the banner is off, and our activity feed as well there. The final thing that I want to show here is our sample email notification. And that's what this is what it looks like. So if you do enable this feature and you want to get emails, you'll get periodic messages saying, hey, these people are trying to contact you in Teams. Okay, so that's what that email looks like. They set it up very nicely. You can see who the people are. And then from there, you can click reply in Teams and it takes you back into the Teams site. So a few other details about our notifications, and I'll just bring this up so you can look at this. So like I said, I want to reiterate, all of these different alert types will cause that status bar indicator. Email notifications, so if you enable email, will not be instant. It will take some time. Email notifications and banners are not sent if you actually view the alert. So if you're currently in a chat, so for example, if I have chat messages, banner, and email on, I'm in a chat and it's this back and forth, I'm not going to see an email from that because Teams is smart enough to realize, okay, you're responding to these people. We don't need that email there, okay? So now the question is, which settings do I actually use? We have all these different settings here. What should I enable or disable? So I found out that in my experience, when I was new to Teams and I was not constantly in the app, I was missing important information. So I made sure to set my notifications like this to include email. This way, even if I wasn't actively in Teams, I would get that email digest letting me know what I might have missed. Now that I've been using Teams for quite a while and I'm kind of always in it, it's baked into the workflow of our department. I turned off all the emails just to keep me from getting like information overload. Okay. The next part of this, so this right now is personal or your main notification settings. These are kind of global. If I set the @channel mentions over here, it's going to apply down to all of my channels. But there is a way to start changing channel notifications for specific channels. Okay, so let's look at that. I go here, so I'm in my training accounts. And I could go to the general channel and click on that. And I could say channel notifications. So from here, whatever I set at that high level, now I can go and fine tune it for each of the individual channels that I have. So for all new posts, all those new conversations, do I want anything or do I want to just keep that off? For channel mentions, if someone mentions a channel, what then do I want to do? Okay, so you do have a way to work with those individual channel settings there. Okay, so I would save it for this specific general channel, and I can go to the next channel, and then I can change the notifications for this one, and so on. So now that we know that we can configure these individual notifications, we could start to really set up teams to suit our needs. The teams and the channels that we're not so much involved in, we're taking a passive role, we can turn those off and just maybe set a reminder for us to go in there at some frequency to check on what content is going on there, okay? We might also want to just enable channel mentions in general. So I'll show that. Settings, notifications, so channel mentions. Maybe I want to keep that enabled. So all posts, I'm not going to get anything, right? But then channel mentions, I will keep that to actually get those pop-ups. So with channel mentions, we want to be thoughtful of, now, instead of the ones receiving it, think from the perspective of, I'm the one now that's using the channel mention. You might be really excited, oh, there's this new cool thing, I want to let everyone know about it. But what I would suggest is to make sure to keep it only for cases where you really need to alert everyone who's following the channel. Or else it might stop people from following the channel completely. They're constantly getting these messages that aren't related to them. They might go in and decide to just disable all notifications from there. So keep that in mind, you know, what you want to do there. There is a way that we're going to look at to mention just a subset of people. We'll get into that very shortly. But as owners of a team, if you find that people are maybe using at channel or at team notifications too much, you can disable that. So that's good to know as the team owner. We would encourage you probably to have the conversation with your team instead and sort out maybe some general rules around using it, like only use it if it concerns everyone or if it fits into a certain theme or topic. Instead, at mention specific people. Okay. And now the other consideration too is, let's say you're a part of a lot of teams and you're thinking, okay, now I know I could go into each one of these and start silencing them, but I'm a part of like 10 teams and each team has 10 channels. You're telling me I have to go and change this 100 times? Well, what you can do is this is the strategy, you start at the main level, your personal notifications over here. And it's neat, when I change this, okay, for my chat messages and channel mentions, so I could turn this off at this level. And once I do that, it will take that setting and kind of propagate it down into each of the individual areas. And then from there, I can click on it and then just flip it back on. So all these are off, I'll go and turn it on. So let's see that. I'll go in here, I'll say notifications, channel mentions, I'll turn that off. Okay, so now when I go in here, channel notifications, channel mentions are off. So I can now pick and choose which ones I want to flip on. Reverse is true as well. Maybe you feel like you're not getting those notifications that you should be. So you can go in, turn it on globally at this level, and then just go and visit the ones that you know you don't want to be notified about and turn them off. So you have one of two approaches to take there. So now let's say that you have it sorted out nicely, but still when you're doing at channel mentions, you feel like you are including people that, you know, maybe you feel bad. You're constantly using the at channel mention, but there's a couple of people, you know, they didn't really need to be notified about this. So for example, CSDTL, our group, it consists essentially of like Cheryl, Vanessa, myself, and Glenda. And there might be other people in that channel, in that team, who are in there on just an informational basis. So anytime we mention the whole channel, we feel bad because now Marcella and Laura are getting these pings, right? So what we can do instead is set up tags, okay? So tags are a nice alternative to mentioning the channel. So let's see a tag over here. So what I can do is in my team, I can click up here and I can see that there's a manage tags button. Click on that and I can create a new tag, and you see we have one here, the training owners, right? So I can create a tag and include specific people. So now when I go down here, I'll do at CSDTL training owners. And now I'm only hitting those 4 people that are included in that tag. Pretty nice, right? So let's go over some of the settings for the tag. So again, to get to it, I'm gonna click on the 3 dots. I'll go to Manage Tags, and you can see that I can create the tags over here. I can view the tags that I'm a part of. If I wanna further manage it, what I'll do is I'll go to Manage Team. And then we have, under Settings, we have Tags. And you can see by default, tags can only be created by the team owners, but you can change it so anyone in your team can change those settings. And tags, you have to keep in mind, they're only in the scope of the team itself. So if I create a tag in our training accounts team, I can't go and use that in one of my other teams, okay? So you can use it for @mentioning, and it works to the user as the same as if they were @mentioned themselves. So if, for example, I included all of you in a tag and I @mentioned that tag, you will receive it in the same way you receive a personal @mention. So if you've set your @mention to email and to be notified by banner, that's how the tag will reply as well. That's how that will. It's also possible, so if we go to our tag here, manage tags, from this page, I can click on one of these groups, see who's in it, and then click chat, and it'll automatically start a chat with that group. So pretty neat implementation of the tags feature. Some examples, maybe you want to @mention a subgroup. So for example, there's a large UIT team, let's say, and someone doesn't want to mention all of them, they just want to hit the IT security group. So someone can set up a tag specifically for that IT security group. It's also nice to set up a tag for, if you have a large team and you have multiple team owners, set up a tag for the team owners. And what we recommend doing is using the acronym of the team so you know which team that they're actually affiliated with when you're using it. So that acronym is nice because you'll have an idea of the specific team and it's not as confusing. Okay, let's move on to a new topic here, availability and status. So I can click on my profile and you can see that I'm available right now, but I could change it to a whole bunch of other settings. So there might be times where you don't want to be interrupted, where you still want to keep your teams open, and you don't want to go in and start changing all your settings, turning all the notifications off one by one. Instead, you could just change your notification, or your availability rather, to do not disturb. When you enable do not disturb, you will see the following message on your screen. So your status is set to do not disturb. You only get notifications for urgent messages and from your priority contacts. So now let's say I want no one to interrupt me except for my manager, Vanessa, the director, Jennifer, and Cheryl. So then I can click on here on my profile, go to settings, go to privacy, and then I can click on manage priority access and I can add those individuals there. What I would suggest is be mindful about how you use Teams when you're using do not disturb and who you're adding to the list. Because I thought, okay, I'm gonna add Cheryl, Vanessa to do not disturb. But then what I realized is I'm only using do not disturb when I'm doing these sessions, right? When I'm presenting to a group of people. So by adding them to the list, I will be in a session and they'll be sending off messages, and all those messages are coming on the screen. So I've removed everyone from do not disturb, and I only really use it when I'm in these video recording sessions. If not, I'm just setting it to busy, and then that just sends the message to people that are busy, but they can still message me if need be. Now this other part, so we see the priority contacts, but what about urgent messages? What the heck is an urgent message? So notice this, I can go and chat with someone and I can actually hit this button here and set something to urgent. Now, if you decide to use this, don't overuse it. Don't make your emergency someone else's emergency. Cheryl and I were having a nice conversation around this, and we would say only use it is if the person you're using it with, if it is already their emergency and you need to let them know instantly. If it's because you're in some sort of bind and you're just grabbing at anyone who could possibly help, we would discourage you from using this because it's not fair, right? So again, use it when you need to alert someone of their emergency, okay? Maybe a little bit, maybe I'm being a little bit strict, a little bit harsh there, but just keep others in mind, and maybe in those cases, decide whether an urgent message is needed or one of just a standard message, and leave it up to the person to come back to you when they have that opportunity. Okay. On that kind of note, sending out messages, there's also a way to mute messages. So maybe this project over here, I'm not involved on it on a day-to-day basis. The team is doing a great job. I'm just checking up on it maybe every couple of weeks. I could right click and I can mute it. Okay, and then at any point I could unmute that as well. I can also set a status message. So along with my status up here, I'll go back to available, and I could put a message. So I could say set status, and I could say doing great today. And I could choose if people see this when they message me, and I could say when to clear it. How Cheryl and I have been using it is just to remind people that if they do have a ticket type question, they need service, to please send that to LD Tech. So we put that in our status, and we set it up so it's always enabled there, and people will see it when they send it. And you can see that here. I'm messaging this Project X, and it says status of Avenue Prospero, and it has my personal message in there. Okay. There might be times when you want to talk to a group of people, okay, but they're not already in a team. I have this team over here. There's a few people missing. So, I think everyone's inclination is, hey, let's start up a new team. We'll create a brand new team site. We'll invite these people. We'll have our conversation. It's going to be great. If we do this, it's going to lead to so many new team sites that are created that are hardly used. So a really nice alternative is in chat, you can actually start a brand new chat. So I'm going to click up here, and I'll put some of my friends. I'll put Robin Teacher and Starling. Well, I'm Starling, so I can't put Starling. I'll put Adam. And I can put Kiwi. Okay, and then when I hit enter, it creates a brand new chat over here with all those people. Okay, hey, just bringing everyone together for the big email that needs to go out, something like that, right? And what's neat is I could rename this too. So I can call this one, I'm going to call this one the Virtual U Newsletter email, something like that. So we're not creating a whole new team. Maybe this is something that involves people from like different functional areas. So what we're gonna do instead is just create a group chat, and I can rename it. And what's awesome is I can still go in and add documents here. So I could upload a doc. It will automatically be shared with everyone that's in this group. You can also pin the group chat. So I can go here and I can say pin, and it's always going to appear at the top there. And I'm done with it, I could unpin it. Okay. So now at this point, we understand we have different availability settings. We can see we could do group chats, individual chats, a lot of different ways to communicate. We can set the settings around how often we're notified, whether we're getting the banner or just the notification icon up here. So a lot of great stuff. And the question comes up, okay, well, now this is fine and well, but when should I be using chat versus when should I be using email? Okay, so let's have a little insight into this. I think what I would suggest is talking to your department about it, talking to your group, and figuring that out, what you all agree on as making sense. Okay, so some suggestions, what we've kind of arrived at is, if something isn't urgent, I'll send an email, I'll let it sit there, let the individual find it and determine how they want to use it. We would discourage people from using Teams chat for ticket type communications. So if you're reaching out to UIT or reaching out to us for for training type stuff for a few reasons. So one, it can get overwhelming for the individuals receiving those messages. It also makes it difficult to track requests. So something like UIT, an email goes in, they have the system that automatically picks up your request, puts it into their ticketing system, assigns a ticketing number. It can also be difficult for people who have like a personal approach to handling large amounts of emails coming in, okay? And finally, it makes it more likely that those requests might get lost. So email is preferable, again, if the content is more of like a formal message, like agreeing to take on a project, you know, that becomes the record of interaction, and it makes it easier for to actually file that record into your record keeping system. So however, once you've established something over email, maybe it makes sense to then take over with this back and forth through chat, right? So for example, we'll submit a ticket to Johnny, and we'll say, can you help us in the lab configure some sessions? He gets back to us, yes, this date and time works. And then at that point, we're on chat saying, okay, we've done this, what's next? So that makes more sense than an email. So let's look at some really nice features you could use to help balance and some settings that we could look at to help balance and redirect email and chat content. So the first thing is, if you get some really important chat message and you think, you know what, this is going to be great in an email, maybe I want to forward this to myself only, or maybe even to other people, I can click on the 3 dots and I can say share to Outlook. So I can do this with any message that I have. And then from here, it loads this embedded Outlook page, and I can start saying who I want to send this to, right? Type in their email. Again, I could just send this to myself, so then I can file it myself. So maybe I manage ticket system, someone puts out a chat message to me, I decide to take on that and help them, but then I want a record of it, so I'm going to forward this off. Okay, so that's the first way. The other approach you can take is in your email, you can, maybe there's some cool message in email and you're thinking, oh, I want to put this to my team, to the channel. So each of these channels, so I'm going to go to my team, this over here, I can say get email address, and I can actually copy this email address here and take any email that I want and forward that over. So let's try this. I'll copy that. I'll go into my email. Let's see here. So I can take this email, let's say, and I can say forward. And I just need to paste in. So I go to that area. And I have a get email address. Copy that. And then now in my email message, I just paste that address. And I can kind of clean it up. I'll take out all my stuff over here. And I'll just paste that. And then I can say send. Now this will go, and it doesn't happen instantly. It might take a little bit of time, but eventually we will see it appear right there. And then now that email has been forwarded to the channel. Okay, so let's work in this vein a bit of, you know, we're creating some content, we're providing content into the into our channel here, and see some other ways that we could create content, find the content in Teams. So maybe what I want to do, I'll go to the general area. You can see in our, so now I'm in the channels and the posts, and we have our standard messages, but look at this, we have this neat message that really stands out. So there's a few ways to do this. When I start a new conversation, I can click on the format button, and it allows me to add a subject and add the details. That's one thing that you can do if you want to make your message stand out. Now, the other approach you can take is switch it from a conversation to an announcement. And when I do that, I can put in a headline, I can set the color or choose an image, I can set a subheading. I can say virtual U sessions now live, or maybe that's suitable for the subheading. Right, and then you put your details here. And you could even like paste some content in, you know, put whatever you want there. Okay. And then you could choose, do you want people to be able to reply to this? Or do you want to just have it so it's strictly a message being put out there? You can also post it to multiple channels. So I could click on multiple channels and set that up. Okay, so there's a lot of neat things that we can do with that, and I'll leave that up to all of you to decide what some suggested implementation is. Even create a channel that's meant strictly for news that's relevant for your team, and all you're doing is putting announcements in there and maybe forwarding email messages to it. So that's the idea. You can also set something up, maybe like you're working on SOPs in the department, and it's important where anytime there's a change to an SOP, you want to have a record of that. So you have a channel specifically for that. And you can go in like something like this SOP updates, and you set it up so it's strictly just people going in there and posting the content, not actually editing it in any way. Okay, so now we're into our final topic, which is actually accessing and finding all this content we're creating. So our final section details how to find this, all the great content we're creating, and like the alerts and notifications are excellent for immediately letting us know when a message or post is sent. But what about if we need access to something days, weeks, months, and you know, hopefully even years later, we want our content to still be relevant, right? So the first thing you can do is saving posts. So maybe this message is very important. I want to come back to it because there's a good link in there. What I can do is click on the 3 dots and say save this message. Okay, and when I do that, I go up to my icon and I can see save. I know it's not the most intuitive thing in the world, but once you get used to where you find it, it makes it much easier. So I go save, and now I can see on the left-hand side, these are all the icons that I've saved, all the messages, and I can click on it, and it will actually, let me click on a different one. It will take me to that specific file. Okay, so you can see what that looks like. I'll go to this one, and it shows you in the context, right? So I have the history of messages above as well. That's the first thing you can do. Okay, I'll recap that. Click over here, save. I guess because this one's already saved, that gives me unsave, but you get the idea, and then you can access it from up here, save content. Next is using the activity feed. So we have our activity feed here, and you can just remember that anytime you've been mentioned, anytime a channel has been mentioned that you're part of, Teams mentions anything like that, someone reacted to your message with a thumbs up, you will see that in your feed. And you can go and just scroll through and kind of see all that, or you can actually filter it. Okay, so you can change it down to your activity, only the things you have done, or the things that people have mentioned about you. You can click on the filter icon and type in a specific term. So maybe I'm thinking, you know, Cheryl sent me something. So I could type her name, and I'm thinking, oh, you know what? It was a at mention. And I could filter it down just to that, and I see this, and then now I can see that message that I have over there. Okay. So really easy to search. I can also do things like maybe this message, it has important info. I want to come back to it later. I can mark it as unread. Okay, so now in my activity feed, I should see it there. So let me try that again. I'll go to this one. Let me find something else. This person, I'll go here. Mark as unread. And now in my, I'll see it's unread there. And it should appear as unread in my activity feed. It's not showing up there. So I'll have to look into what's going on there. Sometimes there's a little bit of a delay, but once you mark something unread, you should be able to see it in there as well. So I'll have to look into what's going on there. Okay, so that does it for our session. I hope through this session you have a sense of what the ways that you can increase your notifications by going to your notifications either in your profile or for specific channels. And you know, on the same token, you have ways now to decrease the notifications by going to those same areas. and you have a sense of how to use the activity feed area and how you can use this to filter down and find the specific piece of content from some time ago. Thank you so much for attending this session. We will follow up with an email containing a link to our job aid, which I can show you over here what it will look like if you haven't had to see this in the chat just yet. But this document will include the key information from our session today, okay? How to deal with each of these different areas. Thank you so much for attending the session. We look forward to seeing you in other sessions in the coming weeks. Take care.